Ancient myth to help you sleep, why Dionysus once turned pirates into dolphins. A strange ship and a quiet sea. You awaken on the deck of a pirate ship, drifting under a hot Mediterranean sun. Hey guys, tonight we're sailing straight into a very strange Greek myth. You're standing barefoot on the deck of a creaky old ship, the planks warm underfoot from a relentless Mediterranean sun. The sea around you is impossibly calm like glass stretched to the horizon, while gulls wheel lazily overhead. Their cries softened by distance. Salt air sticks faintly to your skin, and somewhere below deck, you hear the low murmur of rough voices, and the clink of amphorae, as they're rolled into place. You probably won't survive this journey. Not in the way you expect, anyway. After all, you've unwittingly joined a pirate crew. On the day they kidnap a god, yes, an actual Olympian. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know, where are you watching from tonight, and what time is it there? Drop it in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You exhale slowly, gazing out at the flat expanse of blue. There's no land in sight, not even a smudge of coastline to anchor your sense of direction. The pirate captain, a broad-shouldered man with sun-leathered skin, leans lazily against the tiller, a thin blade tucked casually into his belt. His crew move about with the restless energy of men too long at sea, checking ropes, bickering over rations, and spitting over the side. You're the new recruit here. Picked up in a nameless port after swearing you could cook, you can't, or so sails you really can't. Mostly, you've been keeping out of the way, pretending to scrub planks while wondering how much trouble you're actually in. But today feels different. The air is heavy, not storm heavy, but thick with some strange tension that prickles your skin. Even the gulls seem to keep their distance. Then you hear it, faint, rhythmic footsteps coming from the stern. You turn, expecting to see another surly sailor. Instead, a young man stands there, figure utterly out of place on this rough vessel. His robes are deep purple, draped with effortless elegance, and his dark curls tumble carelessly around a face so perfect it's almost unsettling. A gold circlet glints faintly on his brow. The crew hasn't noticed him yet. You blink, certain your eyes are playing tricks in the heat, but no, the man is still there, hands clasped loosely, an amused little smile on his lips, as if he's been waiting for you to notice. A breath of wind stirs, carrying with it the faintest scent of crushed grapes. Meet the guest in purple robes. A young man in regal clothes appears mysteriously on board, seemingly out of nowhere. The man in purple doesn't speak right away. He simply gazes out across the calm sea, his expression serene as if he stepped onto this creaking pirate ship on purpose, which of course makes no sense at all. You glance at the crew. Somehow, they still haven't noticed him standing there, which is odd considering he looks less like a sailor and more like someone who should be reclining on a marble couch, being fed figs. His sandals, yes, actual golden sandals, don't even leave scuffs on the weathered planks. Finally, the captain's second-in-command, a wiry man with a chipped tooth, spots him. He freezes mid-step, squinting at the figure. "Oi, who's this then?" he barks, drawing the attention of the rest of the crew. Heads turn, a hush falls. You can practically feel the collective thought running through them. He's too clean, too calm, too rich-looking to be one of us. The captain strides over, boots thudding. "Name yourself," he growls. The man tilts his head, studying the captain as one might a mildly interesting insect. "I am but a traveler," he says, his voice warm and lilting, carrying a faint echo, as though it's bouncing off distant cliffs. "Your ship seemed a fine place to rest." A few of the rougher sailors exchange greedy looks. To them, this isn't some ominous stranger, it's an opportunity. Here is a nobleman, perhaps even a prince, ripe for ransom. Historians still argue whether the pirates in this myth ever really debated his identity, or if greed simply overrode caution from the start. In any case, these men aren't about to ask for references. "Rest up," the captain says, his tone softening into a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. "And what might a fine lad like yourself offer for our hospitality?" The stranger's smile widens slightly. "I offer nothing yet, but perhaps we will share a drink." At this, the crew laugh. One of them, a barrel-chested sailor with a scar across his cheek, calls out, "Hear that? He's already demanding our wine. Must be a prince." Sure enough. Someone fetches an amphora, and the pirates begin to uncork it with eager hands. The young man settles gracefully onto a coil of rope, robes pooling around him like liquid amethyst. He seems entirely unbothered by the rough stares and whispered plans swirling around him. You're standing awkwardly to the side, caught between fascination and unease. Something about the way the stranger's gaze lingers on the sailor's calm, patient, almost pitying sends a shiver down your spine. The amphora is opened with a wet pop, and the scent of fermented grapes fills the air. Cups are passed around, rough hands clinking clay mugs as laughter starts to rise again. But under that laughter, there's a low hum in the air, a sound too faint to place. It could almost be a voice, singing in a language you don't understand. Whispers among rough sailors, the pirates mutter about ransom, suspecting their guest is a rich nobleman in disguise. The pirates are already deep in their whispered debates. They gather in small clusters across the deck, mugs in hand, voices pitched just low enough that the young man in purple, who sits cross-legged like a calm schoolteacher, cannot hear. Or so they think. He's a noble's son. Mark my words, mutters one sailor, his breath heavy with wine. That robe alone could pay for a year's worth of wine and women. Could be a god, another says with a snicker, clearly mocking, but unable to hide the flicker of unease in his eyes. He glances sidelong at the strange guest, who has begun tracing slow, absent patterns on the wooden deck with his fingertip. Bah, says the scarred sailor, slapping his mug on a crate. A god, on this tub. He gestures around at the ship's chipped railings and frayed ropes. Olympians don't slum it. Yet the conversation always circles back to ransom. The pirates' logic is simple. Take him, demand gold, retire early. They picture themselves walking into marble-floored palaces, holding out their calloused hands for bags of silver. The details, like which noble family would pay, or how they'll explain the kidnapping without losing their heads, are left suspiciously vague. Historians still debate whether this crew was meant to symbolize mortal arrogance or mere bad luck. In any case, you're beginning to wish someone would suggest letting the man go. But no such voice comes. The young man remains seated, a faint smile curling his lips. He seems entirely aware of the plotting, yet utterly unconcerned. A warm breeze stirs his curls. For a moment, you could swear the air smells faintly of crushed grapes and wildflowers. Think he's got guards nearby. Someone whispers. Or a ship following. Not a chance, the captain says, voice low but sharp. Look at him. No weapons, no fear. He's soft, the kind you could snap like a reed. You can't help but glance again at the man. He catches your gaze, and, just for a heartbeat, his eyes flash not with fear or anger, but with something far older and deeper. Something that makes your stomach flip, as though the deck itself has lurched beneath you. The pirates, oblivious, call for more wine. Amphorae are uncorked, and a fresh wave of laughter sweeps across the ship. Someone begins to hum a tavern tune, stomping his boots in uneven rhythm. Another joins in, drumming his palms on a barrel. The sound is almost enough to mask a faint creaking, not of wood, but of something growing. You're not sure when you notice the first tendril of green curling delicately around the base of the mast. Uncorked amphorae and uneasy laughter, wine flows freely as the sailors relax, unaware of growing oddities around them. The laughter grows louder, as wine flows freely. Clay mugs are passed from hand to hand, some sloshing over onto the sun-warmed deck. A barrel-chested pirate belts out a bawdy verse, and the others join in. Their voices hoarse from sea air, and too many drinks. You're standing near the railing, pretending to clean a coil of rope, but your eyes keep darting to the young man, seated at the center of it all. His expression hasn't changed. He sips delicately from a mug. How he got it? You're not sure, and watches the rowdy crew as if they're children playing at being dangerous. One sailor stumbles, catching himself on the mast. More wine. He bellows, and two others oblige, lugging another amphora from the hold. This one smells even richer. The sharp tang of fermented grapes thick enough to make your nose prickle. The pirates are relaxed now, voices slurring as plans for ransom give way to grander dreams. Someone boasts he'll use his share to buy a villa in Corinth. Another vows to marry the high priestess of Athena herself, earning loud guffaws from his companions. But amid the raucous laughter, something strange begins to happen. At first, it's so subtle you think your eyes are playing tricks in the heat haze. A thread-like green shoot winds up the rigging, so thin it could be a piece of twine. It curls lazily, stretching toward the sunlight. Then another appears. And another. Historians still argue whether the ancient poets intended these vines to represent Dionysus's connection to nature, or simply his sense of humor. Either way, they're spreading tiny leaves unfurling, tendrils weaving silently around ropes and pulleys. No one notices. The young man hums softly, a tune so low, it's almost lost in the clamor. You feel the hairs on your arms rise. The scent of grapes and wild thyme seems stronger now, carried on a breeze that wasn't there a moment ago. The pirates don't smell it. They're too busy jeering as one of their own tries to dance on a barrel, losing his balance, and crashing to the deck with a thud. The young man chuckles, a sound warm and faintly amused, like someone watching a pet chase its own tail. You glance at the mast again. The vines are thicker now, creeping higher, their leaves a deep, almost glowing green. Tiny buds swell along the stems, promising clusters of grapes that shouldn't exist in this salty air. A shiver runs down your spine. You're no scholar, but even you know this isn't normal. The pirates, however, remain oblivious. Another amphora is uncorked. More laughter, more boasts of riches to come. The young man takes another delicate sip of wine, his eyes glinting faintly in the golden light. The first vine creeps across the mast. Green tendrils begin to sprout, unnoticed at first, curling lazily up the rigging. The first sailor finally notices. It happens as he stumbles toward the mast, mug in hand, intent on relieving himself over the side. He stops mid-step, squinting at the emerald curl wrapped around the rigging. "Oi, that's new," he slurs, jabbing a finger at the vine. His companion laughs, clapping him on the back. "Too much wine, mate. You're seeing things." But he isn't. The tendrils have thickened, coiling up the mast in lazy spirals. Leaves fan outward, their surfaces glossy and vibrant. Small grape clusters hang like drops of amethyst, swaying gently with the ship's motion. You swallow hard, the back of your throat dry. The young man in purple doesn't even glance up. He continues to sip his wine, legs crossed neatly beneath his flowing robes. A faint smile plays at his lips, as though he's listening to a private joke. Another sailor notices. "What's this now?" he says, pointing. "Who strung up grapes?" The captain strides forward, scowling. "What are you babbling about?" He follows the pointing fingers and freezes. His sunburned face pales slightly. "Vines," he mutters. "Growing on my ship." Historians still debate whether this detail came from oral tradition or was poetic invention. Could a god really make plants bloom on seasoned timbers, soaked in salt spray? Or was this simply the ancient way of saying the pirates felt nature closing in? "Cut it down," the captain barks. "Now." Blades flash as sailors hack at the creeping greenery. But every slice seems to bring more growth. The vines thicken, twisting around blades and pulling them from hands. Leaves unfurl in great, impossible fans. Grapes swell in size, bursting with juice so fragrant it makes your stomach clench. Then come the sounds. Not the crew's curses or the scrape of steel, something else. A soft rustle, like whispers weaving through leaves. The creak of the ship's timbers shifts in tone, blending with faint laughter, high musical, almost childlike. You whip your head around, but no one is there. Only the young man, sipping calmly as his eyes glimmer gold in the sunlight. The captain points at him, voice cracking. "You, what trickery is this?" The man finally stands. He moves like water, robes flowing as though stirred by an unseen breeze. "A trick," he says, gently, tilting his head. "No, Captain. Just a little greenery. You looked thirsty. The vines are everywhere now. They coil around railings, slither up the mast, even weave through the pirate's hair and clothing." One man screams as grapes spill into his mug, the juice staining his hands deep red. The young man spreads his arms wide, and the whispering grows louder. Leopards, where there should be none, spotting wild animals padding silently along the deck, makes panic start to bloom. The deck has become a living, breathing garden. Ivy trails along the railings, thick vines curl around the anchor chain, and clusters of grapes dangle from the rigging, like strange purple lanterns. But it isn't just plants anymore. The first growl stops everyone cold. Low and rumbling, it vibrates through the planks beneath your feet. You grip the railing instinctively, scanning the deck. The sound comes again, closer this time. From behind a coil of rope, a sleek shape slinks into view. A leopard. Its golden eyes flash as it pads silently across the boards, tail flicking lazily. A second follows, then a third. Their spots seem to shimmer in the dappled light, filtering through the vines, As though they're half real, half dream, the pirates freeze. Wide-eyed, one drops his blade with a loud clatter. "Gods help us," someone whispers. But no help comes. The young man stands at the center of the deck, arms loose at his sides, his purple robe untouched by the chaos around him. His eyes catch the sunlight, glowing faintly now, not golden anymore, but a deep, intoxicating amber. "I do hope you like cats," he says mildly, as if discussing a pet preference over dinner. Historians still argue whether these beasts were literal in the myth, or symbols of Dionysus's wild, untamable nature. But here, as the leopards prowl the deck, their muscles rippling under spotted fur, the question feels dangerously irrelevant. One sailor panics. He lunges for the rail, but the vines tighten, forming a living barrier. He stumbles back, tripping over an amphora, and the wine spills across the deck, mingling with crushed grapes and pop. Another pirate raises his dagger with shaking hands. "Stay back," he shouts at a leopard. The animal blinks slowly, unimpressed, then lets out a bone-deep purr that makes the man drop his weapon. The young man, no, not a man, not anymore, tilts his head, as if amused by the display. "You might have asked me to leave nicely," he murmurs. Wine drips from the vines above, staining the deck red like scattered rubies. The air is thick now, not just with the scent of grapes, but with something heavier, something heady and sweet that makes your eyelids flutter. The god's voice seems to come from everywhere at once. "I could forgive you, or I could play." The leopards pause. Their ears twitch. Then, in perfect unison, they turn toward the pirates. Panic breaks like a storm. A song that isn't from this world, strange music echoes over the water, and dolphins surface, following the ship. The panic spreads faster than wine across the planks. Pirates trip over one another, shoving, shouting, scrambling for weapons that the vines keep plucking from their grasp, like mischievous hands. But above the chaos, there's a sound, soft at first, almost pleasant. Music. It drifts across the water like mist, weaving through the rigging, and slipping into your ears. A melody so strange, so unearthly, it doesn't belong to any flute or lyre you've ever heard. The notes rise and fall like waves, gentle but insistent, tugging at the edge of your thoughts. And then you hear them. Clicks, chirps, the slap of tails against water. You rush to the rail and peer over. Dolphins, dozens of them. They dart alongside the ship, sleek bodies glinting silver in the sun, their dorsal fins cutting clean arcs through the glassy surface. They seem drawn to the melody, their movements in rhythm with its haunting tune. One leaps high into the air, twisting before splashing back with a sound like applause. Another surfaces so close, you can see its curious eye, peering up at you. Historians still debate whether dolphins entered this myth as mere witnesses, or active participants in Dionysus's magic. Either way, their arrival feels heavy with meaning. The god's voice hums beneath the melody. "Such clever creatures," he muses, not to anyone in particular, faithful, joyful, perhaps deserving. The pirates don't hear him. They're too busy clawing at the tangled ivy that's begun to crawl across their boots. The leopards have stopped advancing, content now to watch, tails swishing lazily. The real predator is the music. You notice something odd about the vines. Their growth isn't chaotic anymore. They spiral purposefully now, tightening around the masts, weaving nets across the deck, gently steering the ship as if they've taken hold of the rudder itself. And the dolphins keep pace, their clicks and whistles rising in excitement. The pirates' panic curdles into terror. Some make a run for the rail, desperate to leap into the sea. But the vines lash out, tripping them, holding them just long enough for the god to speak again. "Would you really prefer the sea?" His tone is soft, almost teasing, but it makes your blood run cold. The dolphins chirp loudly, circling closer. Their playful arcs begin to feel like a dance, a strange, elegant ballet, in the shadow of the ship. Sailors scramble, as wood turns to ivy. The planks creak and split under leafy growth, the ship transforming into a floating garden. The planks groan underfoot not with age, but with transformation. You watch in disbelief, as the once solid wood of the deck begins to soften, fibers splitting and rearranging. From every crack and knot, ivy pushes through in a lush wave, carpeting the boards in green. The mast has become a living tree. Bark roughens its surface as branches sprout, twisting skyward with impossible speed. Grapevines drape from its limbs, heavy with ripe, dark fruit that seem to pulse faintly, as though each contains a tiny heartbeat. The pirates stumble back in horror. The ship, One of them shrieks. She's turning on us. Historians still argue whether this vivid imagery was symbolic of Dionysus's power over nature, or a literal god-tier prank. Either way, here and now, it feels terrifyingly real. The railing cracks as ivy thickens around it, weaving a barrier of leaves and tendrils. The scent of wine is overpowering, sweet, heady, cloying. You taste it in the back of your throat, even without drinking. One sailor draws a knife and hacks at a vine wrapped around his leg. The blade barely makes a dent before the tendril snaps back like a whip, sending him sprawling. His mug rolls away, spilling its red contents across the leafy floorboards. Overhead, a leopard stretches lazily on a new-grown branch, its tail flicking. It watches the men scurry like mice on a sinking ship. The young men know. The god walks slowly forward. Each step blooms fresh greenery beneath his sandaled feet. His robes billow gently, though the air is still. "Why do you fight?" he asks, voice calm. "You wanted wine. You wanted wealth. You wanted me." The pirates freeze. Some are shaking so badly they can't hold their weapons. Others glance at the sea, weighing their chances. One finally makes a break for it. He throws himself over the railing with a wild yell, aiming for the calm blue water below. He never hits it. Instead, there's a flash of silver. The dolphin circling below rises up, catching him mid-fall, but there's no splash, no scream. Just a sudden, smooth archon, where there was a man, there's now a dolphin, leaping joyfully beside its kin. You blink. Did that really happen? The god smiles faintly. Ah, the first. The remaining crew erupts in panic. They scramble for the railings, claw at the vine nets, shout prayers to gods who will not come. But Dionysus only raises one graceful hand. The vines tighten. The dolphins wait. The guest drops the act. Dionysus finally reveals himself in full divine glory, golden light pouring from his skin. The god's hand lingers in the air, fingers outstretched, as if conducting the strange symphony of vines, dolphins, and terrified men. One by one, the pirates stop moving not because they want to, but because the ivy has wrapped them gently, firmly, pinning arms and legs. Even the captain, who has spent years commanding ships with a voice like a storm, can only sputter helplessly, as leaves curl across his mouth. "You came to take me for ransom," Dionysus says softly. "But I'm afraid the price has changed." The leopards descend from their leafy perches, padding silently across the transformed deck. They weave between sailors like curious house cats, sniffing at boots and beards. One gives a low, amused chuff, as if to say these humans are hardly worth the effort. The ship itself seems to hum now, wood creaking, but with life. You feel it under your feet, a faint pulse, like a heartbeat. Historians still debate whether this was meant to show Dionysus's mastery over nature, or to remind listeners that ships and sailors alike were never beyond the god's reach. Whatever the interpretation, here and now, you can't help but feel very, very small. The first pirate-turned dolphin arcs out of the water again, clicking excitedly to its new pod. The others chirp in response, weaving around each other in joyful spirals. Such elegant creatures, the god muses. Free from greed, free from fear. Perhaps you'll enjoy this new form. A second sailor vanishes overboard, his scream cut off mid-fall. A sleek dolphin surfaces in his place, tail slapping the water with an almost playful flourish. The remaining men are frantic now, eyes wild. One tries to beg through the ivy gag, tears streaming down his sunburned cheeks. Another shakes his head violently, as though denial might undo the magic curling around him. Dionysus regards them with something between pity and amusement. "You took me for prey. But tonight, you learn mercy, my way." The vines release. The pirates don't wait for further instruction. They leap overboard in a flurry of limbs and splashes, choosing the sea over the god's terrible, quiet power. Each splash ends the same way, with a dolphin leaping joyfully in their place. The god lowers his hand. The ship falls silent except for the rustle of leaves and the occasional chitter of dolphins below. You stand frozen, gripping the vine-wrapped railing, as the last of the crew vanishes into the waves. All that remains are you, the god, the leopards, and the sound of water lapping gently at the hull. Dionysus exhales slowly, his amber eyes softening. "They'll thank me. In time." Too late for apologies, the terrified pirates leap overboard, choosing the sea over the god's wrath. The sea is calm again. To calm. The dolphins circle the ship, their sleek bodies glinting silver in the waning light. They leap and twist playfully, clicking and chirping, as if nothing unusual has happened, like they've always been dolphins, and never men with calloused hands and greedy hearts. You lean on the railing, hands gripping the vines that still pulse faintly under your palms. Your breathing slows as the realization sinks in. You're the only human left on board. Dionysus turns to face you. His expression isn't cruel. If anything, it's thoughtful, like a sculptor admiring a nearly finished work. They fought so hard, he murmurs, his gaze distant. But in the end, the sea was always kinder than their ambition. He steps lightly across the vine-carpeted deck, his bare feet making no sound. The leopards follow him, tails swishing lazily, as they nudge grapes with their noses. One yawns wide, revealing a flash of sharp teeth, but they seem more curious than predatory now. Historians still debate whether this part of the myth shows Dionysus's infamous cruelty or an unexpected mercy. After all, the pirates weren't drowned or torn apart, they were given new lives, freed from their human flaws. The god kneels at the edge of the ship, trailing his fingers in the water. At once, the dolphins converge around his hand, pressing their sleek foreheads upward in what looks like reverence. He smiles faintly and murmurs something in a language you can't understand. The dolphins chirp back, tails flicking in unison. "Did you know," he says suddenly, glancing over his shoulder at you, "they'll never drown, not even in storms?" You don't answer. It's hard to speak around the lump in your throat. He turns back to the sea. "They'll guide sailors to safe harbors, rescue those who fall overboard. Even in this form, they'll remember their time as men." Faintly, the vines around the ship begin to loosen, curling back slightly, as though their work is done. Grapes drop into the water with soft plunks, sending small ripples outward. Dionysus rises, brushing non-existent dust from his robe. "They're part of the sea now. And the sea," he says, with a wistful smile, "never judges." The ship drifts on, surrounded by its strange new escort of dolphins. Fins instead of feet, one by one. Their splashes end, not in silence, but in playful dolphin clicks. The god straightens slowly, letting his fingers slip from the water. As he does, the last traces of the unnatural vines recede from the deck, melting back into the planks with a faint sigh. Only a few stray leaves remain, fluttering gently before catching the breeze and drifting out over the sea. You notice your knuckles are white against the railing. You force yourself to loosen your grip, though your pulse still thrums hard in your ears. Dionysus steps lightly across the deck, the leopards padding after him like obedient shadows. His robe glimmers faintly now, the deep purple seeming richer, more regal, as though the fabric itself has drunk in the day's chaos and distilled it into quiet power. He glances at you with a softness that surprises you. "You didn't join them," he says, his tone neither accusing nor congratulatory. "Why?" You swallow, unsure how to answer. Was it fear, awe, or something stranger, a sense that leaping into the sea wouldn't have spared you from his magic anyway? The god tilts his head. "No matter. Perhaps you weren't meant for fins." Historians still argue whether this solitary survivor in the myth was a narrative device or a symbolic witness, meant to carry Dionysus's story to the world. But as the dolphins chirp below, weaving and spiraling joyfully, you suspect the truth lies somewhere between. Dionysus approaches the railing. Below, a particularly large dolphin breaches, twisting midair before splashing down in a spray of silver droplets. "They'll protect the helpless now," he murmurs. The irony, of course, is that they were never much good at protecting themselves. You realize, with a start, that he isn't speaking to you anymore. He's speaking to himself, or perhaps to the dolphins, or to some unseen audience, far beyond mortal comprehension. A breeze stirs his curls, carrying that same faint scent of grapes and crushed thyme. "Pirates no more," he says softly. "Now they are guides, guardians, companions of the sea." The leopards rub against his legs like overgrown house cats, purring deep in their throats. He scratches one behind the ears absently. The sun dips lower, spilling gold across the calm water. The dolphins seem to glow in that light, each leap and dive, leaving ripples that shimmer like melted coins. The god exhales, his breath slow and measured. "Perhaps I am too merciful," he muses. But there's no regret in his tone, only a quiet amusement. Why dolphins were sacred ever after, you float, watching them circle the ship joyfully, their punishment turned blessing. You lean against the railing, muscles still tense, though the deck feels strangely calm now, like a storm that's passed without ever breaking. The dolphins swim in slow, deliberate circles around the ship, clicking and chattering, their sounds almost musical in the golden twilight. Dionysus watches them in silence, his amber eyes reflecting the fading sun. There's a softness in his expression you haven't seen before, not the amused detachment from earlier, but something closer to wistfulness. "Do you know why dolphins were sacred to me?" he asks suddenly, his voice breaking the hush. You shake your head, unsure if he expects an answer. "They are creatures of joy," he says simply, "of freedom. They know nothing of greed or cruelty. They take care of each other, even of strangers lost at sea. How could I not favor them?" A smaller dolphin leaps nearby, its sleek body catching the last light before vanishing beneath the surface. Another surfaces so close you could almost touch its smooth back, if not for the vines still curling faintly around the rail. Historians still debate whether dolphins were revered before this myth or if this tale gave them their sacred status. But here, watching them play in the ship's wake, it's easy to believe they've always been little emissaries of the gods. "Men are not so kind," Dionysus continues, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "They plunder, they betray, they take without thought, and yet, even pirates can be repurposed." He glances sidelong at you, as if gauging your reaction. You nod faintly, though your mouth is dry. It's hard to argue when the evidence is leaping gracefully all around you. The god runs a hand along the railing, where a single grapevine remains, a stubborn twist of green that refuses to retreat. He plucks a ripe grape and tosses it into the air. Before it lands, a dolphin breaches and catches it neatly in its mouth. The sound it makes, high, happy, almost laughing, carries across the water, echoing faintly like a farewell. The god's expression softens further. They'll never hunger, never drown. They'll know the sea better than they ever knew land, a kinder fate than they deserved, perhaps. He exhales, his breath warm in the cooling air. "But then, mercy is my vice." The leopards stretch languidly, their golden eyes closing as if lulled by the dolphin's soft clicks. Night begins to creep across the horizon, the first stars pricking faintly in the deepening blue. The god's little-known soft side, Dionysus muses aloud, on mercy, companionship, and why he loves the sea. As the stars multiply above, Dionysus remains at the rail, his gaze fixed on the water. The dolphins, tireless and joyful, continue their slow circling dance around the ship. Their clicks and whistles rise and fall like a chorus, blending with the gentle slap of waves against the hull. "You know," he says at last, his voice quiet, "people rarely speak of my softer side." You blink at him, unsure whether to respond. "They call me the god of wine, of revelry, of chaos." He chuckles softly, shaking his head. "They forget I am also the god of release, of letting go. Not just of inhibitions, but of pain, of fear." Historians still argue whether this interpretation of Dionysus was a later addition to his mythos, or if it was always there, obscured by the more dramatic tales of orgiastic rites and divine vengeance. Either way, here, now, you're hearing it from the god himself. He gestures to the dolphins. "These men, these pirates, they were not good, but they were not beyond saving. I could have let them drown. Instead, I gave them joy." A breeze stirs his robe, carrying the now familiar scent of crushed grapes and thyme. "Joy is a dangerous thing," he murmurs. "It dissolves fear, erases ambition. Perhaps that's why mortals fear me more than they admit." The leopards stretch, their golden eyes glowing faintly in the starlight. One yawns wide, revealing teeth sharp enough to remind you they are no mere pets. Yet they seem utterly relaxed, as if they too are lulled by the dolphin's song. The ship rocks gently, and you realize you've stopped gripping the railing so tightly. Your shoulders, once locked with tension, have loosened without your noticing. Dionysus closes his eyes and inhales deeply, his face calm. "Mercy does not erase justice, it transforms it." His words float in the night air, like the scent of the sea, soft, pervasive, lingering. The god opens his eyes again, glancing at you briefly. "Stay awake if you wish. But the sea will rock you soon enough." And indeed, the ship's motion feels different now, not rough, not turbulent, but like a cradle swaying gently in a nursery. Above, the stars seem closer somehow, their light refracted faintly in the calm waters where dolphins glide, silent and watchful. Myth versus memory on the open water. You drift in the lingering magic, reflecting on how stories preserve divine mischief. The night deepens, the sea around you melting into an endless stretch of obsidian. Only the stars and the pale crests of dolphin backs break the darkness. The ship drifts without sail or rudder, yet moves with a steady grace, as though guided by unseen hands or fins. You stand silently, your fingers brushing the rail where faint traces of vines remain, little tendrils that twitch lazily in the night air. Dionysus, too, is quiet. He leans against the mast, no longer a mast, really, but a living tree crowned with grape clusters that glow faintly like lanterns. His eyes are half closed, his breathing even. It's almost easy to forget the raw power he displayed hours, or was it only moments, before. Stories preserve us, he says finally, his voice low, nearly lost in the sound of waves, or they destroy us. The choice lies not with the gods, but with those who speak. Dionysus, too, is quiet. He leans against the mast, no longer a mast, really, but a living tree crowned with grape clusters that glow faintly like lanterns. His eyes are half closed, his breathing even. It's almost easy to forget the raw power he displayed hours, or was it only moments, before. Stories preserve us, he says finally, his voice low, nearly lost in the sound of waves, or they destroy us. The choice lies not with the gods, but with those who speak. The dolphins leap now and then, their sleek forms catching stray starlight. You wonder if they remember, if some echo of their human voices still lingers in their clicks and whistles. They'll forget. In time, Dionysus says softly, as though reading your thoughts. Memory fades. What remains is instinct, joy, care, play. A warm breeze stirs, carrying with it a sound like faint laughter, not mocking, but gentle. It could be the dolphins, it could be the god. You shift your gaze to the horizon. There's no land in sight. Perhaps there never was. Perhaps this is no longer a place mortals can chart. The god moves to the rail, his profile limned in silver light. Perhaps you'll speak of this night, he muses, perhaps not. Either way, the story will change. The leopards are curled now, at the base of the mast, their tails twitching as they drift in some half-alert slumber. Even they seem subdued, lulled by the ocean's rhythmic hush. The ship sways gently, gently. You feel your eyelids grow heavier with every pass of a dolphin's fin through the water below. A warm sunset and sleepy waves, the ship turned vineyard rocks gently, dolphins singing below, as night slowly falls. The sky above has deepened to velvet black, studded with a scatter of stars, so bright they seem almost too close, too sharp against the darkness. The moon hangs low and heavy, its reflection stretching across the water in a silver path that dances with every dolphin's ripple. Dionysus remains by the rail, hands resting lightly on the wood oar, what was wood before it blossomed into something wilder. His gaze is fixed far off, as if he sees not the horizon, but some private memory only a god could recall. The sea is a forgiving place, he says at last, voice soft enough to blend with the sigh of waves. It takes what we discard. It transforms. The dolphins circle lazily now, their earlier exuberance calmed. A few glide close enough that you can hear the soft exhalations from their blowholes, the almost whispered puffs that mist faintly in the cool night air. Historians still argue whether the pirates ever returned to their original forms, or if they remained dolphins for all time. Some say they became sacred guides, protectors of lost sailors. Others claim they faded into mere animals, their human memories dissolving like foam on the tide. You feel a pang of relief, or is it envy? As you watch them, their arcs through the water are effortless, graceful, free of the weight of mistakes or ambition. Dionysus turns to you, his amber eyes now softened to something gentler, like aged honey in lamplight. You're still here. You nod, words lost somewhere in your chest. He smiles faintly. Then you will carry this tale. Tell it well or don't. It matters little to me. Stories grow as vines do, wild, tangled, impossible to prune. The leopards rise slowly, stretching their long bodies and yawning wide. They pad to his side, brushing against his legs like shadows with substance. The god looks once more at the dolphins. They were foolish, yes. But even foolish men deserve a second chance. Then he straightens, his form blurring faintly at the edges like mist unraveling in the sun. His robes ripple in a breeze you can't feel. His voice, when it comes again, seems to echo from everywhere at once. Rest now. This part of the journey is done. You blink, and he is gone. Only the faint scent of crushed grapes lingers, twining faintly with the salt air. The ship drifts onward, steady and silent. The dolphins swim with it still, their sleek bodies cutting quiet arcs in the starlit sea. The leopards have vanished. The vines have withered back to planks and ropes, yet some part of the ship feels changed. Softer, kinder. The water laps gently against the hull, a sound so rhythmic it could almost be a lullaby. Wind down. The ship drifts. The stars wheel overhead in their slow, eternal dance, and the sea cradles you like a child. Each creak of the timbers and sigh of the waves blends into a soft rhythm, lulling your body toward stillness. The dolphins remain close, their movements unhurried now, like guardians content in their watch. You hear their quiet clicks and whistles as they surface and dive. Surface and dive sounds as soothing as the hush of a distant breeze through leaves. The air feels warmer somehow, heavy with a faint sweetness that clings to your thoughts like a half-remembered melody. You let it fill your lungs, each breath slower than the last. The gods are far away now. The leopard's gone, the vines faded. But their presence lingers in the faint hum beneath your feet, a reminder that not all transformations are meant to be undone. You let your shoulders soften, your eyes grow heavy. The sea rocks you gently. The night folds around you like a deep, velvet quilt. There is no need to fight sleep. The story has carried you this far. Let it carry you a little further still. Your breathing slows. The dolphins sing softly below, their voices rising and falling like distant bells through fog. And as your mind drifts toward dreams, you realize you've lost all sense of time. The ship may sail forever, only until morning. It doesn't matter. You are safe here. The sea has you now.